Today we're going to talk about the main couple, Loid and Yor Forger. All of us know that the two formed a fake marriage out of their personal interests and that they're both into jobs that need them to be cold-hearted and emotionless. So this fake marriage should be nothing more than a means to their own desire. They should be fine as long as their status quo is maintained, right? But we all know this isn't going to happen. Firstly, you have a hot guy that is capable of doing anything you ask him for and is deeply caring for those he actually knows. And secondly, you have a hot waifu that can do the same thing. Who wouldn't think this is a match made in heaven? If you read the manga, you will realize that Loid and Yor are bound to fall in love with each other. If not, they already are. Despite their motives, there are quite a few wholesome and romantic moments between Loid and Yor throughout the series that make us question if they really fell in love with each other. And how else to answer than looking at some of the most important moments between the two and finding out whether these two are actually in love or not. So we're gonna sift through all of the chapters explaining every moment to you. Welcome back everyone, and it's time to go balls deep. Today we're going to talk about Spy Family. Wait, why are you all surprised? You thought I'm a dum-dum that only covers shonen fighting series? Yes. Okay, you're right. But don't be so bamboozled. There isn't a single person in the world who doesn't love this anime and this wacky pretend family. I mean, look at the rating on Mal. Can I get a shit? No. This rating alone started a war not only on Twitter, but all over social media because apparently it's too high.
Wake up to reality.
On a serious note, we asked our community if they wanted Spy Family content, and a whopping 68% said yes. Well done, you're cultured. You actually know what's good. So that only meant one thing. We will provide what you want, but in return, please can you hit the notification bell? Anya is a good girl, aren't you, Anya? So of course their story begins from chapter 2 where they both first meet each other. What truly drew Loid's attention to Yor was that she walked past him without Loid even noticing her presence. Plus Yor even sensed his gaze, something that certainly shocked our master spy Twilight. It was really cute that Loid made up an excuse that he was staring at her because he found Yor really pretty. Well, was he even lying? I mean, look at her! And Yor's reaction to this was pure gold. She was definitely worked up because of her co-workers and brother constantly probing her about dating. And just the fact that Loid had a positive impression of her appearance without her putting any extra efforts was enough for her. She almost asked Loid out on a date before she realized that Loid was someone else's husband. Yor had wanted Loid to be her pretend boyfriend for the night so that she could not only save face with her co-workers and Yuri, but also save her respectable assassin job. Please don't kill me, Yor. Yeah, guys, by the way, I kind of forgot to mention that our favorite waifu would slice your neck if you cross her, but that's a risk we're willing to take. Am I right?
Goddamn right.
Well, by this time, Loid had also diagnosed Yor's background in his head and even thought that she was intuitive from his first impression. In conclusion, Loid thought that she was perfect for the role of his wife. Well, thanks to a little Oscar-worthy performance from Anya, both of them came on the same page and agreed to be pretend lovers for the party in the evening. Yes, guys, Anya is more talented than actors like Amber Heard. I mean Amber Turd. Anya for the win, guys! Anyways, their agreement was on one condition from Loid. He also wanted Yor to appear for the family interview at the Eden Academy as Anya's mother. However, the more important moments that draws Loid and Yor closer is actually at the party. While Loid had promised to meet Yor, he got caught up in a super important mission. This led to Yor going to the party alone and becoming the butt of jokes and feeling hopeless by imagining how ordinary life looks like. From her childhood, she had never experienced anything like family because she had to bring up her brother Yuri all on her own. Just when Yor got exhausted by her co-workers humiliating her and she was about to leave, Loid entered the venue. Well, not in the best shape though. His sudden appearance was shocking, but this declaration that he was Yor's husband was the real bombshell. He had accidentally messed up his mission with Yor since he was feeling a little dizzy. But even his presence didn't stop her jealous co-worker from trying to ruin Yor's image. She tried her best to humble Yor in some way, but she failed. Look at that kick though. Woo! That's when I felt it. Oh yo, I'm married. I need to calm down. I need to calm down. Camillia's final plan was to stain Loid's impression of Yor by telling him about her suspicious and borderline lewd profession. She announced in front of the whole gathering that Yor would go to men's rooms in hotels to give them massages. As we all know, this was just Yor disguising her real job of assassinating people. Anybody would have taken aback by this, which is why Yor panic. But our boy Twilight is a GOAT, and he isn't just a random anybody. He handled the situation very calmly and expressed his admiration for Yor. Instead of being upset, Loid said that Yor's sacrifice for the survival of Yuri and herself was wonderful instead of shameful. This wasn't Loid simply appearing nice to Yor though. He had all the information he needed on her to have made any other answer to Camillia's accusations. But Loid saw a part of himself reflected in Yor. In the manga, we can see him remember his past, which is probably why he couldn't hold himself back. Even if he was slightly mistaken, he was correct in thinking that just like himself, Yor had also put in everything for someone else's sake that was greater than herself. He also said that this wasn't something anybody could do, and he really admired Yor for it. This was probably the first time someone had stood up for Yor, and her reaction to it was absolutely priceless. She was definitely moved by Loid going so far to speak such kind words for someone he had just met the same day. Their meeting was undeniably the beginning of something special. And well, it didn't take Loid and Yor too long to know that even if it was a fake scenario, they were perfect for each other. After getting caught up in a wild goose chase, Loid and Yor had to fend off a bunch of criminals. Props to Yor for confusing the greatest spy ever and figuring out if Yor was the sharpest or the dumbest woman he had ever met. But also Yor kicking away the bad guys, delighting Loid so much. Like, that was freaking hilarious.
Okay.
They were just getting on the same wavelength when Yor struck him like lightning by asking if he wanted to marry her. Loid's action at the party had made Yor realize that he was the only man who would accept her as she was. Unlike others, Loid had not just understood her struggles, but also hadn't shunned her from the first meeting. It was only reasonable for her to propose the extension of their contract for her own benefit. And why would Loid deny this? His long search for a fitting wife had come to an end by a crazy coincidence, and Yor wasn't nosy or dumb for him to worry about. He recovered from his initial shock and accepted Yor's offer, which brings us to our favorite moment, the proposal. The best proposal ever, and I'm sure you all agree. It was totally in character for both of them to make it official right in the midst of danger with lovely vows that were just covered cover-ups for their interests.
Damn, that's crazy.
We then move on to chapter 12 because that was one hurdle down, but Loid and Yor still had a bigger and more difficult hurdle to cross, and this was none other than Yor's little brother, Yuri. He also keeps his real profession of being a state security service officer a secret, but despite being the younger sibling, Yuri is extremely protective of his sister, and I mean a little bit too protective, you know what I'm saying? I'm talking about a cis-con flag, mate. Anyways, in chapter 12, Loid and Yuri for the first time as a couple, and this meeting turns into another instance for us to fawn over our favorite ship. Being in the SSS meant that Yuri was the mortal enemy of Twilight, Loid's original persona, but he didn't know that the loving husband of his sister was the man he had been searching for all along. So instead, in some poetic way, he was the mortal enemy of his brother-in-law and intended to judge Loid's worth against Yor's. This just meant Loid had to be the perfect husband, and he was a master of disguises, as we know. From the get-go, he did his best to accommodate Yuri, but when he began to ramble about how much he loved his sister for all the sacrifices she made, Loid decided it was time to take charge. He boldly declared that he loved Yor as much as Yuri did and will stop at nothing to shield her from harm. Loid might be trained in lying from his teeth, but he went as far as saying that Yor is an important family member and he would even save her from nuclear bombs. Yuri was clearly down bad and he's drunk at this point, but he still couldn't buy Loid and Yor's marriage. He noticed them pulling away from each other as a knee-jerk reaction when their hands touched. Despite being married for a year, in his dazed state, Yuri challenged Loid and Yor to kiss if they were really in love with each other. This obviously caught both Loid and Yor off guard, no matter how prepared they were for handling a freaking crisis, assassinating people, doing these world-saving missions. This was just something insane for them. But Twilight being Twilight, he convinced and composed himself in 0.1 seconds that his mission was more important than a couple of kisses. He had faked relationships with other women before this too. He accepted Yuri's test and leaned in to kiss Yor, who was out of her mind in panic. She had never kissed anyone else in her entire life before, and this was way too sudden for her. Well, what else to the rescue than alcohol? So Yor gulped a large amount of wine to feel tipsy enough to kiss Loid back, and the wine was too much for her to take, and she went from tipsy to bold in a blink of an eye and took charge of the kiss. Even our calm and composed Twilight was suddenly surprised with Yor's boldness. So seeing that Yor was about to break the childish promise she had made to Yuri, he jumped in to stop her, but Yor sent him out of this freaking world with a massive slap in her drunken state. I mean, if Loid and Yor were nothing more than trophy husband and wife to each other, they wouldn't need to hesitate this much whilst kissing, right? They are single-mindedly onto their personal interest through this relationship after all. But with this, we can definitely say that both of them had started to develop some feelings for each other, even if they weren't very obvious. Eventually, after some bleeding and tripping, Loid managed to get both of the siblings onto their feet properly and came forth with his feelings. He thanked Yuri for taking care of Yor and said that he will support Yuri in giving Yor the happiness she deserves. After Yuri left them alone, Yor admitted that she was embarrassed for her brother's behavior. But to this, Loid simply said that he was envious of both of them. However, his mind went back to him envying Yor and Yuri whilst the rest of the family was sleeping. He thought he was just tired and went to sleep wondering how tomorrow will be another day of quality time with his mission in quotation marks, guys. But he's clearly thinking of something else instead of the mission, or rather someone else. After the crazy events of the day, there's no doubt that he enjoyed playing part of a family man and a husband to Yor, so it makes sense if he actually disguised his desire to spend more time with Yor or even Anya as his mission. Aww. How cute, right? This showcases to us that Loid is falling in love with Yor for real, but due to his spy training and traumatic childhood, he has learned to disguise what he really feels and doesn't quite understand what it is. He requires more time, just like Yor.
So if chapter 12 and 13 were a huge development in the dynamic of Yor and Loid, then chapter 14 made sure to emphasize on their budding feelings. In order to make sure that Yor had no knowledge about Yuri being in the SSS, Loid had to take a few stringent steps, and the first was to plant a listening bug on her. But despite being the spy master he was, Loid was hesitating and even questioning if he was going too far with her by putting a bug. However, he couldn't risk the mission and pretended to shake off some gunk on Yor's face to plant the bug. But the funny thing is that Yor imagined Loid was going to kiss her, and yet she didn't back away from him. It was a sign that she trusted him enough and even let her feelings get the best of her when she was with Loid. Back to Yor's mini mission, he had asked Frankie to accompany him in questioning Yor. They both got makeovers as members of the fearful secret police and made false accusations on Yor. They wanted to know if she would try to get away by name-dropping Yuri, but she didn't, because she also didn't know about his real profession. Loid had succeeded in his mission and proven to himself that Yor was actually innocent, and this should have made him happy because it meant no hiccups with his mission. But on the contrary, Loid fell into a grim mood after completing his mission, making Frankie ask him if he felt guilty about suspecting Yor. Yor was meant to be nothing but a way for Loid to complete his mission without getting his feelings involved. Frankie had to remind Loid that he shouldn't involve his feelings if he valued his life, clearly telling us that Loid really felt bad about putting Yor through problems. He met up with Yor later and slyly retrieved the planted bug, but Yor had a lot to say. She was feeling inadequate as a wife and mother, but Loid comforted her. He advised her to be exactly who she was because it was exhausting to be the person of one's ideals. It was tiring to always put on a performance in front of everybody. In an odd way, Loid and Yor understood each other the best because they both had to take on a lot of personas beside themselves. But their relationship with each other brought out the best in them and even made them feel relieved by providing them a taste of what ordinary life felt like. They could also let down their guards with each other, becoming like a safe space for them to be just themselves to a certain limit. Loid's comforting was clearly something Yor needed to hear because she looked very relieved and happy when she replied that she was glad to be married with Loid. Loid was taken aback by her genuine feelings and he thought back to Frankie asking him about feeling guilty. Undoubtedly, he did feel guilty for going so far, and to cover that up, he asked Yor to celebrate their anniversary. Let's go! But Yor's feelings of being inadequate didn't stop there. In chapter 24, we see her trying her best to learn cooking for Anya and Loid, however in secret. But Loid noticed Yor was coming home late for days on end with a grim face as always, having multiple cuts on her hand. Even if he wasn't supposed to be invested in her personal matters, Loid was still concerned. After multiple failed attempts, Yor managed to cook up southern stew, a dish her mother used to cook for the siblings. It was a pleasant surprise to Anya and Loid that the stew Yor cooked was absolutely delicious instead of their toxic last meal. Yor was so moved by seeing them enjoy their meal that she teared up. She finally felt like she had done something significant as a mother and wife, and it boosted her confidence as she told Loid. Loid also fondly replied to her that he couldn't wait to see what Yor would make next. That's so wholesome. But this told us that they were both putting in effort to give their best at this odd relationship, even if subconsciously more and more they're looking like a real family, as they both selflessly do things for each other as their feelings grow. The next major event in their relationship is in chapter 30 of the manga. Fiona visited the Forger household in hopes of burning this cute family down and replacing Yor's place as Twilight's wife. She planted seeds of doubt in Yor's mind and tried to convince Loid to get rid of her. However, her actions seem to have backfired as she noticed something in Loid, something she had never seen before. Fiona is completely obsessed with Loid and has meticulously studied his disguises and techniques. Hence, she can notice any changes in Twilight's behavior. When he was talking to Yor, our Twilight fangirl noticed that in his disguise, Loid's true emotions were leaking out. This means that when Loid said, "You're a great wife" to Yor, he truly meant it. In my opinion, chapter 35 of the Spy X Family manga is one of the most significant chapters in the series if we're talking about building the chemistry between Loid and Yor. In the previous chapters, Loid went on a mission to retrieve a painting with Fiona, who's a spy as well. To do so, they had to participate in a tennis tournament and win. Loid told his family that he's participating as a duo in his office's sports event with Fiona. While this wouldn't be a problem, Fiona later challenged Yor to a tennis match and lost instantly. Fiona wanted to prove that she's the better wife, but the tables were turned on her. Either way, Yor somehow believed that she was going to lose to Fiona because she's more ladylike and can probably do more than just be strong. Chapter 35 starts off with Yor being extremely sad and simply looking down and walking, even bumping into a pole, but remaining stuck in her own thoughts. Some of the Forger family's neighbors saw this and instantly believed that Loid was cheating on her. What? If you're one of those immensely dense people who can't get a clue, Yor is clearly attached to Loid. She's pretty jealous and sad over the thought of someone replacing her. While she's worried about being separated from Anya as well, you guys will get the point in a moment. Loid fortunately managed to see this and knew that he had to clear all this up. And to do so, he invited Yor on a date after work. While Yor was happy about it at first, she realized that Loid asked her to come like this because he wants to talk about something in private. If you don't know this is the right time to imprint this in your mind. When an overthinker overthinks, they convince themselves that they're going to go through the worst possible outcome in about 2 seconds. In fact, they're so good at convincing themselves about this fake scenario that it's comparable to Anya making people believe that she doesn't have powers. As the bartender pours a drink for the couple, Yor has concluded that her romantic dream is about to turn into a nightmare. This is exactly when Loid utters the words, about yesterday, which confirms poor Yor's suspicions, and she shrieks out of fear. Barely composed, she has spaced out and is lost in her thoughts. She knows if Loid decides that he no longer wants to be in this fake marriage with her, then she has no choice. Both of them entered into this marriage out of self-interest, and neither of them has the right to interfere in either person's personal life. She believes that if Loid likes someone else, then she should simply move away with her self-respect. Therefore, she tries to say it up front that she's okay with it, but the words won't come out. She's attached to Loid and she can't bring herself to say things she doesn't mean. Yor wants to continue living like this. She's grown accustomed and fond of it. She's in love with him. Fortunately, her conclusion is very far from the truth. She drowns herself in some more booze and in a cute argument proceeds to go on a rant about how she wanted to wish the best to both of them but doesn't even know what she's doing anymore. Loid continues to try to make it clear that Fiona is nothing more than a work associate. Therefore, understanding emotional intelligence and exactly what Yor must be thinking, highlighting their bond developing as he now understands her more and more. But Yor is too deep into her feelings and booze to listen to him. Bruh, she drunk. Alright. Yor even says that Fiona is prettier and that she wonders if Loid lied about her being pretty when they first met. As soon as Loid connects the dots and realizes that there is a chance that Yor likes him romantically, he spaces out for a moment or two, but instantly enters Twilight mode for 0.1 seconds and regains his composure. Twilight thinks that this is the perfect time to capitalize on Yor's feelings as a spy and steal the conflict with a simple kiss. So as you can see from the storytelling, Yor is absent in this part. It isn't her actions or words this time round, but it's Loid's feelings that are getting involved, which makes it clear that both characters have something inside of them that is building for each other. Loid's just masking his own emotions under this disguise and trying to get lucky. I mean, who wouldn't? Have you seen Yor 8? But, you know, we gotta get the consent first. She drunk, can't do that.
Okay.
As Twilight closed the distance and leaned in for a kiss, Yor, drunk and abashed, threw a massive kick. Loid took the full brunt of it but managed to stand on his own 2 feet, even earning applause from people around him. But it was at this moment that he knew he fucked up. To him, a kick so strong isn't out of slyness, it is a kick of rejection. Before he realized it, Loid woke up to the sound of a song that his mother used to sing, as his head rests on Yor's lap, who was singing the song. This was the first time Loid was knocked unconscious since his training days, but he also admits that he finds comfort and peace while sleeping with Yor, which is something he yearns for due to his tragic childhood. Alright, we've mentioned his tragic childhood like 4 times by now. If you want us to cover it in complete detail, make sure to smash the like button and hit the notification bell. That will help you stay updated with our content. That video is coming, alright? Anyways, after recovering from this shock, Loid cleared everything up and ensured Yor that she will remain as his wife and Anya's mother, after which the two left for home. And when we move on to chapter 46, there was a scene where Loid mentions that it's lonely to have dinner without Yor. Loid wasn't the only one feeling lonely though, as Yor herself was daydreaming about the Forger family, daydreaming of, you know what I was talking about.
Do you ever look at someone and wonder what is going on inside their head?
This brings us to chapter 53. During Yor's escort mission on the ship, she was faced with multiple problems. The biggest problem on this mission was that she had in fact become soft. Every single thought in her head somehow ended up revolving around her family. She was worried about hiding her injuries and also worried about her potential death, which would leave Anya motherless and Loid in a tough place. In fact, even her enemies understood that she was scared of dying and asked her if she wanted to help them instead and switch parties. This leads her to the "why am I here" tangent during a fight, leading her to get hit by serious attacks. Suddenly, Yor remembers that she didn't just commit her life to this work for the sake of money to support her younger brother. It was to protect his innocent smile. Now that he's a capable officer, she doesn't need to take care of him, but her reason for committing herself to this job is stronger than ever, as she has a family whom she wants to protect now. This means Yor's will to live life is now connected to her love for Loid and Anya. At death's door, the first thing she thinks about is them and how they will be sad and affected negatively by her passing. Yor has regrets, new goals she wants to succeed in with her family. She has become selfless to them, which only means that the love is starting to become unconditional, which is what true love amounts to. Chapter 56 is just another little clue of their relationship. They enjoy their time and walk around the city. So at this point of the video, it's pretty obvious that these two will eventually get married and admit their feelings. And you may be wondering, how does that fit into their character arcs, ABD? Well, it creates a fitting conclusion for multiple reasons. Number 1, Yor and Loid complement each other's flaws and share the same trauma that can be healed with their understanding of their circumstances since childhood. Number 2, both of them feel lonely and hide their true selves, but they have found someone that can accept them for who they are and unveil the person they want to be. Number 3, Anya represents the connection, innocence, and childhood they wish to have when they were younger, as they both had to sacrifice something, and knowing that together they can provide that for someone that wouldn't have it unless they were together, it will just push them to love each other even more because they saved someone from becoming someone like them. We will have to see when and how they come to terms with their budding emotions of love, but for now, the answer to your question, do Loid and Yor fall in love, is yes. Well, this was our first Spy X Family video, and if you enjoyed it, go punch the like button like Loid punches a table, alright? And let us know if you want more Spy X Family videos in the comment.